You tuned in to the 7-day theory. Hard body, hard spirit. What up, my people? You tuned into the 7-day theory. Hard body, hard spirit. Check this. Akhenaten, this pharaoh, this man, there should be a class just on his reign alone. Now, he was a pharaoh in the 18th dynasty. If y'all don't know 18th dynasty, that was pretty much all the pharaohs in the 18th dynasty were black, right? And if you look the artwork, how he's depicted, the artwork changed when he came into power. But what I want to focus on today is the fact that a lot of people don't talk about, even though there's been books written on this, that Akhenaten could possibly be the real historical Moses. Now think about this. They say the Exodus and Moses was supposedly alive. The earliest date they have is like 14,000 something BC, right? But the pharaohs that they attribute to the Exodus, that was pharaohs during the Exodus that ran Moses out of Egypt, or that chased him out of Egypt, was either Ramses II, which was the 19th dynasty pharaoh, or Amenhotep II, which is Akhenaten's great-grandfather, I believe. Great-grandfather, Amenhotep II. So that's how close. And Ramses II ruled only like about 30 years after Akhenaten. That's how close they're putting the Exodus and the pharaohs they believe were in power when the Exodus happened to when Akhenaten was alive. Now, Akhenaten, just like Moses was supposedly brought up in the kingdom, in the household of the pharaoh. He was brought up, he was raised up in the household of the pharaoh, right? So he was a high class. He was in the ruling class, in the pharaoh's class. He knew the pharaoh, right? Akhenaten, same thing. He was a pharaoh. Akhenaten reigned from 1353 BC to 1336 BC, 36 years. Just like Moses, Akhenaten, there was the capital in Akhenaten's time was, I believe, Memphis. He changed the whole capital. That'd be like if the president got into power today and was like, you know what? Nah, Washington, D.C., that's not the capital. We moving everything. We shutting all this down, and we moving everything to Cleveland, Ohio. That's going to be the capital of America, right? That's what that would be like. So when he got into power, he a few years after he got into power, he shut down all the temples to all the other gods. Because Egyptians, they worship many gods, right? And the priestly class of all these gods, specifically Amen, the god Amen, they were very powerful. The priests were very, very powerful. They had a lot of money. They had and a lot of power. And to Akhenaten, it was too much power, right? Because the pharaoh, he's supposed to be the sole ruler, supposedly, and that's what Akhenaten was getting back to. So he shut down all the temples to Amun. Amun was by far the most popular god when Akhenaten was reigning. He shut down all the temples. And he only ruled. He's the first monotheist. He's the first person in history that we have documented proof of that believed in one God. Now we have the Bible. We have the Torah, the Old Testament, right? That says that Moses was a patriarch of monotheism, right? Believing in one God. But we don't have any archaeological proof that Moses ever existed. And that could be due to because before the Bible was written, the Old Testament was written, it was oral tradition, right? So a lot that it could be contribute to that because it wasn't written down. The Egyptians, they wrote stuff down, right? So we have somebody that is document. We have archaeological evidence of tangible proof that he believed in one God, right? Changed the whole paradigm in Egypt from the belief in a whole bunch of gods to belief in one God. He changed the capital. He went from Memphis to, he called it Akhenaten, city. He built a whole new city from the ground up. So he moved away. So almost like an Exodus, he moved his people and his followers to a whole deserted, a desert, and built up a city, temples, all that, right, within his reign. Just like Moses took his people out into the wilderness, and they wandered for 40 years. Y'all know the Moses story. They wandered for 40 years till they got to the promised land, and Moses had passed away before he got to the promised land, to Israel. But also the way, and we don't have any proof that in Egypt, like as far as everything, all the hieroglyphs, all the documents that they wrote down, right, in stone and all that. We don't have anything that says, yeah, Moses was here and he did this and because the story goes is he put 10 plagues on Egypt. Now that would be a real dark time for Egypt, right? And maybe they wouldn't want to write about that because, I mean, who wants to write about how you got whooped, right? And then unalive the firstborn of every Egyptian, firstborn son. That was the last plague that God put on Egypt through Moses, because the Pharaoh wouldn't let Moses leave and his people leave. But we do have proof of how ancient Egypt treated Akhenaten after his reign. After Akhenaten passed away, after his reign, right? They tried to obliterate his existence. Now you can picture, this would be if Akhenaten is the real Moses, this would be exactly what they would do, because they have a king's list, right? They got a king's list in Egypt. Akhenaten is the only king that is not on that list. He is the only one that's not on this list. They they found his mummy, his cartouche, the gold part of his face is chopped off like someone just hacked it. They scratched out his name. They pretty much tried to do to him what he did to the gods, right? To their gods, because Akhenaten did tell his people to go around Egypt and scratch out all the names of Amun, all the other gods except for Aten. Aten he believed was the one true God. And Aten, just like Judaism and Christianity, his God had no form. He depicted his God as the sun in the energy, in the life force from the sun, but it was not anthropomorphized. I can't say that word. Anthropomorphized. Like, it wasn't, his God was never depicted like with a human body and like an eagle head or nothing like that. It was only ever the sun and the life-giving energy behind the sun, right? And he didn't just worship the sun. He worshiped the energy within the sun, what gives the earth life, the plants, the animals, humans, right? All that. So if Akhenaten was the real Moses, this is exactly what they would try to do. They tried, and what they did to Akhenaten is what they would try to do to Moses, which was like they talk about Akhenaten's reign as a dark period where the gods were in the shadows, right? They turned their back on Egypt. This is how they talk about their gods, because there was no temples, there was no worship of that, and that would be like just like what Moses did. Because if you think Moses put those 10 plagues on the Pharaoh, if he did that, that'd be like the gods had abandoned them, which is exactly how they describe Akhenaten's reign, because there was no worship of other gods. It was just the Aten, right? So they tried to get rid of all traces of Akhenaten. Now, luckily, years later, we found the city that he built up and the temples and his mummy and all that, and he had hymns to his god, the Aten, and all that, which are kind of similar to the Psalms hymn, real similar. And I don't hear enough people talking about this for how close in time that these things occurred. I don't see how people don't take, like, it's got to be more than coincidence, especially like I think through time it got messed up a little bit. Like, maybe Akhenaten's actual story got morphed into what we get in the Old Testament as far as attributing it to Moses and what he did. But a lot of it is similar. A lot of it. Yeah, a lot of it. Like, Akhenaten changed the whole. And then even the elongated heads. The elongated heads first popped up with his when he reigned. That's when he was depicted, and he probably did have, and his wife had elongated head. Even his daughters and everybody. King Tut had a elongated head. and we only see it in Akhenaten's bloodline. After that, it's gone. He changed the whole artwork, the whole just the whole paradigm of the religion. Everything went from the belief of many gods to belief in one God. Y'all let me know what y'all think, though. Akhenaten, one of my favorite people in history to study. I'm out.
You're now listening to the 7 Day Theory. Hard body, hard soul, hard